On this episode, I have compiled some of my best Christmas thrift flips for you, and it just goes to show you that you don't have to spend a fortune to get a beautiful holiday look this Christmas season. So sit back, relax, or maybe DIY right along with me, but let's get started.
We are going to be headed about 50 minutes away to go shopping at a thrift store that I've been to before and I've had a really good success at. Let's get on the road. It's a beautiful drive. We've arrived, so let's go see what we can find. I don't know, I just feel like I need this in my life, but it's kind of expensive at $25. And would I DIY it? Would I do anything with it? I'm not sure. I'm gonna think on it. I'm gonna put it in my cart for now though. I think I'm doing pretty good. What do you think of this? I feel like I need to get it. What do you think? This was a good day to come. Okay, so I love the joy sign, but it's a little bit high, and I've already got a full cart of a lot of other stuff, so I'm going to put it back. I might regret that, but I've got some good stuff. So I feel like we hit the mother load. I'm really excited about everything we got. So let's get back and do some flips on them.
So we are back from our thrifting adventures. For our first thrift flip, I found this wooden box several months ago. It was not on this trip, but I knew that I wanted to do it on this Christmas episode. So we're gonna start here because this one is my favorite one and how it turned out. We're gonna be doing a Christmas tree box. The first thing we're gonna do on this Christmas tree box is remove the hardware, and then we are going to do 2 coats of white chalk paint as a preparation for our next step, which is I created this printable. I will link it for you to use for free. Right now it's a ledger sized document and it's reversed. You need it to be reversed for this process. And then I've also provided another one of a French stripe, and you'll see why in just a second. Now after our paint dries, then we're going to take our picture. We are going to cut it down to size so that it fits right on top of our box, and then we are going to apply a thick coat of this Liquitex matte gel medium. Not too heavy, not too thick, but just right. And then we are going to put our image face down on it, kind of very carefully smoothing out any air bubbles. And then we are going to take our stripes and do the same thing and match up the stripe of our top piece and wrap that on the front and the back of the box. Now, some of you might be asking why I just didn't paint the French stripe on. I just kind of wanted to see how this would work. You could totally paint on the French stripe if you wanted to, but I figured if this works, this would be a really cool technique. Then we let that dry at least 2 hours. I let mine dry overnight. And then once it's fully dry, we are going to take a bowl of water and a soft cloth and just really saturate the paper. Then you kind of start to rub it and it will kind of ball up, and it will be a total mess at this point. You'll be like, what have I gotten myself into? But just be patient with the process. Don't get too aggressive. In areas where I got a little bit too overeager, you pull off a little bit more of that image. Where you can be patient and very careful, you leave more of the image. And this is what we ended up with at the end. And then once it's dry, you may want to run your hand over it again, and some of those extra fibers will work their way off. Now at this point, I wanted to blend out some of the seams of where the matte gel medium had been, and so I just went ahead and very lightly sanded across the entire thing and around the edges of the box, very ever so slightly distress this. And after we have all evened out and smoothed out, then I went back in with this Waverly clear matte varnish and varnished it all out, and that helps resaturate the colors a bit and protect it from any more distressing, and gives it a nice finish. And then of course we reattached our hardware, and here we have a Christmas box that is so beautiful with the French script, the Christmas tree, all of this. I think this would look great out all winter. It's not necessarily Christmas specific, so you could leave it out all winter long and it would look so beautiful. I thought it would be really fun to put maybe a special Christmas gift in it, maybe even Christmas ornament. I love how this turned out. but what do you think? Okay, so for our next thrift flip, we are going to be doing a topiary Christmas tree using a tomato cage that I found at the thrift store. I found this tomato cage for $6.99. It already had Christmas lights on it. It looked like it had some other stuff on it at one point, but it had been stripped down and it was kind of in rough shape. But this is something that I've been wanting to do for a while now. So all we're going to do is I took it outside and I started wrapping it like crazy in some Dollar Tree garland. It's very cheap. Well, it's $1. And I just kept going around and I realized how fast it was eating up the garland. So I went back and stretched it out a little bit better. I used up what I had and then I continued on with several different other kinds of garlands that I had. Some of them were from Walmart, the kind of the $3 garland from Walmart. It's a little bit thicker and bulkier than the Dollar Tree stuff. And then I got a couple of really nice garlands that were maybe like $7 from Walmart. So it was an assortment of those 3 garlands. And I just kept spiraling around the tree. And then I realized that I needed some more. So I went back and got some more. And then I finished out this tomato cage Christmas tree. I added some extra Christmas lights that I had in my stash. I think it turned out really cute. I pulled out a topiary in my bedroom. And so I'm going to keep this displayed as a little Christmas tree in my bedroom. For our next thrift flip, I found this rustic looking star on a stand and it had a light in it and I didn't quite know what it was supposed to be and I didn't know quite what I was going to do with it. Here's what I came up with. The first thing I did is I took a piece of scrap wood that was approximately 12 inches long and about 9 inches tall. I didn't have to cut it down. It was already in my scrap stash. I just took a little wood glue and nailed it on, and then we were good to go with the next step, which is I initially thought that I might spray it out all white and with spray paint, but it was really sucking up the wood and I knew that it would need something a lot thicker. So I just chalked this up as a primer and then I did 2 very thick coats of white chalk paint and let that fully dry. Now while that was drying, I cut out Oh Holy Night and a nativity manger scene out of some permanent vinyl, and you'll see here that it was a little tricky kind of getting it off. For this type of vinyl, you really need to use a strong grip transfer tape. I didn't have it, I just had it the regular kind, so it was a little tricky getting it off, but we did eventually get it on and it was so beautiful. I loved the gold accent to it. But then I just felt like it was kind of unfinished and there was that little box around the base. So I just hot glued some floral foam in and then I just took some bushes of greenery that I got at the Dollar Tree. It's frosted, it's beautiful. Their Christmas greenery right now is so pretty at the Dollar Tree. I am super impressed with what they've got this year. Then we reattached the light and that's it. And this really primitive looking, shabby looking star got a new lease on life and is a very glam, high-end looking nativity manger scene that I think is really cute. Holidays and cheer. A couple of weeks ago, I did a letters for Santa mailbox in one of my episodes. It was super cute, but it was on the larger scale of things. Then on my thrifting trip, I found this really adorable, cute little mailbox. It was galvanized steel and it had a red flag on it, and I knew that we could maybe make a smaller version with this one. And so what I did is I took another thrifted item that we picked up on our trip, which is a candlestick. Totally wild color scheme. It didn't really matter. I started out by chalk painting that candlestick in 2 coats of their crimson red chalk paint. And then it didn't really match the color of red that was on the little flag. Then I got bright red acrylic paint and did a couple of coats of that. And then it ended up being very close to the same color. But the finish was very flat, so I took this triple thick coat kind of a varnish finish and I did a very thick coat of that on the outside. And it says not to work it too much, and that is true. You kind of want to get it on nice and even right away and mustn't fuss with it too much. So then we're going to let that dry. Then I cut out on my Cricut machine some vinyl lettering again that said letters to Santa. I just designed this image in there. I did it layered with the green and the red, and then I also did a ho 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 vinyl as well. And I attached the letters to Santa on the front of the mailbox, and then I put the ho 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 on the side where it near the flag. I thought that was super cute. And then we need to attach it. So I took some of my clear Gorilla Glue, which is very heavy duty strength, and then I put a lot of that on the candlestick, and then I also put on some hot glue just for that instant stick because the Gorilla Glue takes a little bit longer to dry, and that's it. And now we have this really cute, very traditional Christmas looking letters to Santa mailbox that was very inexpensive, very easy to put together. And I love how this turned out. It's a tabletop one. It's a much smaller scale one than the last one we made, but it's super cute. What do you think? I found this beautiful table runner, and it had these kind of cream wool snowflakes on it, on this red, and it just screamed Pottery Barn. I don't know where it originally came from, but it really had a Pottery Barn vibe. Well, on one side of it, one of the wool pieces was kind of stained, and I thought even if we tried to clean that off, it probably would never fully get unstained. So what I decided to do is actually cut off one of the ends with a snowflake on it, and we are going to stuff in a pillow. Okay, it fit in there perfectly. This is just one that I had on hand. And then I just folded it in on itself, found some red thread, matched it up with what was already there, and stitched down the side. And how easy is that? We have the most beautiful lumbar pillow. You can kind of see it in the background. It matches up with another lumbar pillow that I had from previous years that says Joy on it. It also has a very Pottery Barn vibe as well. Then you can see my Pottery Barn knockoff sign in the background here. I made that on an episode. Super cute, right? So it really ties this room together. I really love how this pillow turned out. What do you think? All right, so next up, we are gonna be combining 3 thrifted items into one thrift flip, if you will. So I found this gold base stand, and then I also found a hurricane that kind of had like a little wreath around it. It was kind of a sorry looking wreath. It was not very pretty. And then I found this beautiful box of vintage magnolias that were very Christmassy feeling and sugared or snowed on, if you will. I knew that I could really combine all 3 to make a very beautiful finished look. So the first thing that I did was I gave the glass hurricane a good cleaning. Then I clipped off all of the red berries that were in the little hurricane arrangement. Now I could have probably left them, but I really wanted to have it like a glamorous white and gold look, so I clipped out the berries. And then I taped off the rim of the edge, and I took some gold rub and buff and very carefully rubbed that on the rim of our little hurricane glass. Then what I did is I sat our hurricane onto the gold plate that I found again, and then I tucked in those magnolia pieces in like the bare spots. And I didn't glue any of this in because I wanted to have the ability to take it apart and use it for something else if I wanted to down the road, so I didn't glue it in. I think it's fine. Then I went ahead and I took some more of that same frosted Christmas greens that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and I cut off some of those pieces and tucked those in there. I also found this beautiful gold glittered berries at the Dollar Tree, clipped off some of those and tucked them in. And then I added a Dollar Tree battery operated candle. Now I have the most beautiful little arrangement. It could be really cute as a centerpiece on a table. I have it on my little nightstand here, and I think it is just super elegant, super pretty. I love this thrift flip. What do you think? I found this Merry Christmas stocking holder or at least that's what I assumed it was for. I'm not really sure, but that's what I'm going to be using it for. It was a little rough around the edges, but nothing super crazy. Some of the lettering was bent and the color scheme didn't really work for what I wanted it for. So I did the best I could to bend out some of those edges, and then I very carefully came in and taped everything off, and I spray painted the star, the Merry Christmas, and the base in this pewter color, and kind of gave it a fresh new look. And then that's it. How easy was that, right? We can use it to hang stockings, and this is a really great idea if you can find one of these in a thrift store. If you don't have a fireplace to hang your stockings from, you can find something like this and hang them from that. But super easy, super cute. What do you think? So for this next thrift flip, it's so easy. I almost cannot call it a thrift flip because all I did is I found these gorgeous bronze Mercury glass candlesticks, and then I had some Christmas wreaths that I set on top of them, and then some really fat battery operated candles that I set on top of that. Layering it up gives it a very Christmas or winter flair. You could definitely leave this up into January, February if you'd like. And it was so easy to put together. Keep that in mind. You could do this in the spring, in the fall. The same idea, same principle. Put a little wreath around it and you have a beautiful elevated look. We are gonna go thrifting for Christmas items, and then when we get back, we're gonna flip those thrifts.
The world may seem so still, it's coming in a distant chill.
Okay, so we are to our first stop. It's been a while since I've been here, but I'm excited to see if they've gotten any new treasures.
True to last. Oh, the light like snow.
Look at this pretty book. It's beautiful.
Gives me no.
These are kind of interesting. I feel like that could be fun to embellish something, like, I don't know, about a mirror, piece of furniture, or just have it around. It's really, really cute. I'm just eyeing this. You know, I collect white things, white dishes. I have so much, but that is really pretty. I was about to get it, and then I noticed that it was broken right here, so I think I'll pass on it, but it's so pretty. Look at this really cool frame. I think that needs to come home with me. And this is a really interesting piece. I'm not quite sure. That's kind of pretty.
The light like snow. Then the quiet of the winter night was filled.
How precious is this setting? I mean, look at that. It's so pretty.
Light like memories go flowing in as the light like snow.
I am gonna have to bring Lisa back here. Look at all this stuff. I swear she would like a lot of that. Okay, so we found a few little treasures in that store. It was so much fun, but the biggest treasure was the sweet little grandma and her granddaughter that run the store. Like, they were just the sweetest. So much fun. Take time when you're thrifting to interact with the owners, especially in those little antique shops. You can learn a lot, and they're just the salt of the earth. Now on to the next place.
It's cold outside underneath the mistletoe, and I've gotten you a present that I could.
You guys, look at what's going on out here. It's really pouring. This is totally Florida rain right here. Look at this. This is almost the same bowl as the last place I was at. Is the world trying to tell me something? Like I need this in my life? I don't know.
Ever since July, I've been happier than I had.
Okay, so there's these two Christmas trees here. And I'm feeling like we could do something with those. They're only $8. I think that we could zhuzh them up a little.
I longed for this moment to have you for myself in a cabin out of nowhere, just us and no one else. I've decorated everything till we're perfect for this meeting. Tomorrow it is Christmas, the first for you and me.
Look at this. While I was in shopping,
stopped raining. That's Florida for you.
Tomorrow it is Christmas, the first for you and me.
This might be my favorite and best thrift I've ever done, and that's saying a lot because I've done some really fun ones. And I'll tell you what I love about it in just a second, but let's get into what it is. I started out with some bathroom shades and they needed a little cleanup. So I just took a Phillips head screwdriver and kind of try to flick out that gasket that's on the top, and I was able to get most of that off and scrape that off really good. And then before I cleaned it, I took the sticker off, and then there was like a little bit of residue on it, so I ran an alcohol pad over the entire thing to clean it, and that evaporates very quickly. Now it's prepped for paint, and I sprayed the inside of it with this gold spray paint, and it's just called gold, and it's more of like an antiqued color. And I did that really good, let that dry, and then I flipped it back over and sprayed the outside really good. And then what I did is, while I was out there spray painting everything, I decided to take these candle cup holders that you can get at the craft store, and I took my drill and I took a Forstner bit, I think it was a 1/2 inch Forstner bit, and drilled a hole in 3 of them. While we were out there already, I spray painted the inside and the outside of those for a step that's coming in just a second. Once that was dry, I took it inside to my craft table, and I had several different shades of rub and buff. But before I added the rub and buff, I wanted to hit a little bit of random spots with some black acrylic paint, and I had a baby wipe to kind of just blend it in and rub it in. What we're going for is an aged bell. If you haven't figured that out, we're trying to make like an antique looking bell. And so I went in with the black first to kind of give it like that aged, dirty brass look. Use whatever you have on hand. I think I used cotton pads this time around, but you can use paper towel. You can use whatever you have. You can use your finger, but I don't recommend it. It stays on there very good. I just was doing a random pattern, kind of mixing all the different kinds of golds. The one that was most dominant is the European gold, and I will use that a few times in this episode. It has the most brass-like finish in my opinion. So once I got it looking how I wanted, I went back in with some more of the black paint and kind of put that on, and then washed it all over and kind of swirled it so it just looked aged and kind of dirty. It's looking pretty good at this point. I'm super excited with the direction. Now I want to put like a wooden handle on it, but the finial that I bought at Hobby Lobby was a little bit too small at the base to go on top of the opening, and it wouldn't have sat on there right. I didn't want to make another trip to the store, so I decided to just use my Cricut maker. I made 9 total of 2-inch discs, wood discs, and then I was gonna do 3 of them stacked with some wood glue, and that's what I was gonna use to cover up that spot. But it would be very, very simple to just go get a 2-inch wood circle. They have them in the craft section. I just didn't want to make a trip. I had the things that I needed to make it, and so that's what I did. But you don't need a Cricut maker to do this, so I just wanted to clarify that. So I glued 3 of them together, and of course I made 3 because I was making 3 bells. Once those were dry, I glued the finials onto the wood circle and let those completely dry. And now it is time to take antiquing glaze, and that's what I used to antique the wood handles to look old and aged, and it worked out really good. I let that dry. So now we need to put everything together. So I wanted it to make sure it was sturdy because this is a glass piece. This is not actual brass. We made it look like brass, but this is glass and it could break. So I wanted to make sure that our wood handle stayed on there very good. So I took an epoxy kit that I get at the Dollar Tree, mixed that little bit together, and epoxied our little wood finial toppers onto each one of our little brass bells. Next up, it wouldn't be a bell without the little chime. So I took our spray painted little candle cups and I went and did the same treatment that I did pretty much for the most part on the big bell, but I just basically concentrated on the European gold and the little bit of black glazing that I was doing and let that dry. And then what I did is I took a piece of rope and I made a knot and threaded that through. Then I made it to a certain length so it would poke out a little bit, and then I hot glued that into the center of the bell. And we are almost done, because all I needed to do next was wrap some twine around the top part of the handle, do a square knot, and then I had the excess to hang it with. But I left one alone because, as you can see over here, these are the adorable bells. Aren't they amazing? But I decided to only do 2. I'm gonna keep one of them for sure, and maybe I'll keep these ones too. I'm gonna use this one in my everyday decor because I love it so much. But what is really cool is it actually functions like a bell, because it's got the glass and the little cup rings. I love this. I think it's so beautiful. It looks like an antique bell. I am thrilled beyond belief how these turned out. I think it looks so cute with my swagged fireplace mantle. I might add more to it. I just staged it like this for this episode, but I think it's so pretty. You can see a little bit of the little chime hanging out. Doesn't it look authentic? It looks like I thrifted it and I found it like that in the antique store, but only you and I know all the little steps that we did to do that, but none of them were very difficult at all. This is a totally easy first time project, and you can get a wow result like this. So the next time you are going through your thrift store and you see some cast off little shades off of like a ceiling fan or a bathroom fixture, don't pass them by, because you might be able to turn it into something like that as well. Okay, so for this next flip, I'm gonna give you a trigger warning because it gets real ugly before it gets better. So our sleigh was a little bit wobbly and it was just not sturdy, and like any amount of pressure was gonna just bust it anyways. So a lot of people might pass on something like this, but this is not that hard. It just needs more wood glue. So I set to just pop off the legs and take it apart and add the wood glue. And when I did, the little sleigh legs were a little bit more fragile than I had realized, and they kind of broke in two. At this point, I'm like, uh-oh, what have I gotten myself into? But I knew that we could fix it, but I was a little worried for just a second. I promise we'll fix that. I added some wood glue to where those like little side sleigh blades, I don't know what to call that, but I added wood glue where it needed to go, and then I took some clamps and clamped that together. Now we still needed to repair the broken little leg thing that we did. I added the wood glue where that went, and I clamped the whole thing really good, and I let that dry for many hours. I would recommend leaving it for at least 2 hours. You could leave it overnight, but it was clamped and glued, and that was it. So then all I needed to do, I just hung over a little greenery swag that I had on hand and just propped it up. It looks so cute. I think I paid $8 for this. I noticed on the little sticker tag that it was only $5.99 originally. So I'm like, I paid an extra couple of dollars for that. Maybe it was like vintage and I'm paying a little premium for it now. Either way, I'm thrilled with that. I thought it was a good price, and it was so super cute. And so the next time you find something that you absolutely love, but it's a little bit wobbly, it probably just needs a little bit of wood glue and it will be as good as new. When I found the Christmas trees at the Picker's Paradise, I knew I had to have them, especially at $8 a piece. They were great. They just needed a little something extra, and so that's what I set out to do. My original plan was to pull them out of the container and put them in a new one that I got that was so pretty, but then I looked in the pot a little closer and I had found out that they had been cemented in, so that wasn't gonna happen, but it's okay. I'm like, how can we make this plastic looking container look more elevated? And so I looked at the stuff that I had in my craft room and I went with it. And so I had a mold that I put hot glue in to create like a beaded molding. It takes maybe like 1.5 sticks per row, and I just filled that up, let it sit. It sets up very quickly because it's hot glue, so, and then that dries really quickly. Then I made several of them, and you just peel it out of the silicone mold and then you've got trim. I also had a little crown mold from previous episode, and I filled that full of hot glue as well, let that fully cure and dry. pulled that out. And so then what I decided to do is just hot glue it into place around the upper rim, the beaded trim, and then as well as the bottom rim. And hot glue, it works, and it was just fine. And then I took some hot glue and added our little crown to the middle of it, and that was it. So once that one had fully set up, I took out some black chalk paint and decided to chalk paint everything. And this would cover up that, I don't want to say cheap, but it was a little cheap plastic container and made it look a little bit nicer, but I was not done there. So all I needed to do is take some more of that European gold rub and buff, and I hit the little high points on the crown and the high points on our little beaded trim, and then I also ran it a little bit on the edges and added just a little bit of detailing, and that looked really, really nice. And if you do a little bit too much rub and buff in one spot, you can just go back in with the original paint that you used and cover that up. And I had to do that in a couple of spots, but not a ton. That was it for the base, and I thought, wow, this looks way better than the original. But I wanted to kind of fluff out all of the branches on the top, so I did that. I fluffed them all up, made it look good, but it still felt a little bit sparse. So what I ended up doing is I had picked up a couple of cedar picks, I guess you would call it, at Hobby Lobby, and I plucked off all of the little branches from those picks, and I used about 2 on each one of the Christmas trees, and I just hot glued that cedar in. I love it mixing in different greenery on the Christmas trees. I just feel like that has a more elevated look, and it filled it in a lot more, and it looked so beautiful. And that's all I did for the Christmas trees for now. Maybe I'll go back in and add some Christmas lights later if I decide to, or maybe even a few ornaments. I'm not sure. I think I'll keep it pretty simplistic. The most I think that I'll do is maybe add some lights to it, and that's it. Simple, quick, easy changes really elevated the look of these $8 Christmas trees, make them look so much more high-end. I'm absolutely thrilled with how these look on my mantle here. I think they look fantastic, and I hope you enjoyed that easy flip. Okay, so I found that $4 wooden Christmas tree thing. You could probably find something similar at Dollar Tree, but to thicken it up, I would stack those in like at least 3 or 4 of them, would glue them together. But I found this one as is. It was already white. I had run, through some ideas. It actually did come with a little stencil that I could have used. I wanted to do something a little bit different. Originally, I was thinking that I would do an advent calendar with it, but I decided to kind of scrounge through my craft room and see what I had, and I decided to make a candle stand. So I took a whole bunch of supplies, and the first thing I did is I had this kind of square, I don't know, it's like 4x4 or 5x5 wood plaque thing, and I painted that out in a white chalk paint to match our Christmas tree, which was already kind of in a white chalk paint, so it worked out good. Then I had this yellow kind of star thing that I got at Hobby Lobby, and I decided to paint the back and the front in the white chalk paint and let that fully dry as well. And then I needed to kind of assemble what I was gonna do, which is I'm making a kind of a fun festive candle stand. I think that that's kind of fun to do. So the first thing I needed to do for the tree to sit flush, I needed to get rid of the stem. So I started with a hacksaw. It was not nearly as efficient as my miter saw, but I didn't want to go all the way outside, plug it in, get it all set up to just cut off a little stem. So I was just sawing with this little hacksaw. It was going really slow, and then I just decided to try and break it off, and it worked. And then I decided to take some E6000 and some hot glue and glue it together. I think I would recommend using epoxy for this part, but I did use the E6000 and hot glue method on it. Also did that with a snowflake that I had on hand, which was like a ceramic snowflake. It was already in a white chalk paint and had already been distressed a little bit. It was gonna work out just fine. So I put that on the other side of this wood plaque, and that is it. So then you have a really adorable way to display a candle. You can tuck in a little bit of Christmas greenery if you want. You could embellish this way more than I did. You could, add some gold features. You could do so many things. I just decided to keep it really easy, really simple, just adding a little bit of paint and gluing some things on. You have a really decorative way to display your candle that's a little outside the box, and so I hope that gets your wheels spinning. Okay, next up is that really awesome frame that I found in that really cute antique store with the grandma and the granddaughter. Remember, it had some blemishes. Somebody had dripped on some paint. It was just not gonna come off. I tried to see if like a razor blade would get it off. It wasn't. The first thing I did was give it a good clean. It was kind of gross. It was a little bit dirty. I tried to clean it up as best I could, but there was a lot of intricacies, but it looked a lot better. And all I did is took a little bit of black paint and I mixed in just a little bit of brown paint because it was kind of a black brown, but it was leaning closer to brown. And I went over any spots where it had the paint on it. And then I let that dry. And then I knew that I needed to go back in and repair, like, particularly the one spot that I covered up some of the gold rub and buff look that was already on it. And so I went back in with that European gold and I hit that one spot and I realized that it was a little bit brighter than what was originally on there. So I needed to go all the way around and add that everywhere so it looked like it made sense a little bit more. And I'm glad I did because it really brought the frame to life, really added the dimension, and it looked absolutely amazing. So with that all repaired and looking so much better, I wanted to put in a Christmassy print since that's the theme of this episode. So I actually had this print from last year and I didn't end up using it in one of the DIYs that I had planned on, and it got put in a closet, and so it had a little bit of bending in the photo, so you'll have to just excuse me on that, and hopefully maybe I'll just have it reprinted. But I really loved this nativity print and I will link it below. And I just took the back of the frame, the cardboard, and used it as a template, and I traced it out and cut off the edges since it's an oval, put it in the frame. That's pretty easy, right? We can all do this. This has actually been a really, really easy flip too, but all of them have been really easy. And then of course I'm displaying it on my mantle inside another really elaborate gold frame. And so maybe this is the direction that I'm going in this year. Maybe like a rich, deep colors, maybe blacks, but maybe we'll pull in a few other colors. The golds that are more like of a brassy color. But I just love the way this turned out. Today we are going thrifting to do some holiday thrift flips, so let's get on the road.
Right before Christmas, I was closing down for business in my little prison shop.
All right, we're here. Let's go inside and see what we can find.
On the door, jingled once more, and then time almost came to a stop. But somehow I knew, and maybe so did you.
Oh, here's some Christmas stuff.
Change from now on. Yes, from this Christmas on. This Christmas on. From this Christmas on.
We are back from thrifting and we found some really fun finds. I'm so excited to share with you the thrift flips that I've created using these items. So let's get started with our first thrift flip, which is going to be a makeover of an old Christmas wreath. Now the reason I wanted to do this is because the Christmas wreaths have gotten really expensive over the years, and I wanted to show you that either you could go into your own home and remake your existing Christmas wreath and give it new life, life, or find one at a thrift store that you can zhuzh up with a little bit of love and help and give it new life. So either way, win-win. The first thing that I did was deconstruct the things that I didn't like about the one that I purchased. So I got rid of anything that I just knew that I didn't want to have in the new one. After I got it completely ripped apart and down to the basics, which I did leave some of the pine cones, I did pull one of them out and I wanted to relocate it. Now it's time to add in the fresh new elements that are gonna give it new life. Now, what I really love about the direction that I took on this wreath is I feel like this wreath could get you all the way from right now through the holidays and even after, because while it does have a Christmas flair to it, it's not super Christmassy specific, if that makes sense. So I just started adding, I added some little faux apples from an old arrangement I did a couple of years ago that I had kept and tucked those in. I used some dried orange slices from other projects. So what this really became is like a mix of odds and ends of things that I had sitting around, and it kind of had like a harvest vibe to it a little bit. And then I had these little blueberry looking things and I glued those in. I also added in additional greenery to fluff it up and also give it like variety and texture, because a lot of times the wreaths that you can have are really one-dimensional with just one type of faux greenery, and I really do feel like that if you mix in different types of greenery, that it really helps elevate the look, and it also gives it, I don't know, just a lot of interest and texture. So that's what we did. There really isn't like a whole lot of technique to this. You just look at it and try to like balance it out a little bit with the items that you're using. Then I found this bulletin board on our shopping trip that was only $3.99, and I knew that we could use this in our little project here. Now, it did have like a cork board with some fabric over it. I didn't like that look, and so I decided to rip out the back, and I was really hoping that I was going to find a smooth back of something that I could paint, and then I could just paint the back of it and flip it around. No such luck. Not this time, but sometimes that does work out. But I just went into my pile and ended up finding a piece of plywood that I cut down to fit the dimensions, and then I proceeded to paint that in black chalk paint because I wanted it to have a chalkboard feel. So once I got that painted in the black chalkboard paint, I let that fully dry, and then I took some chalk and just rubbed it on there and then like wiped it down, so it kind of didn't have a fresh feel, but more of like a chalkboard feel that had been used. And then I proceeded to put that back into the frame. Still a great deal. I'm super excited about it. I thought the frame was kind of cute. Then I took a piece of furniture webbing and used it as a ribbon, and I threaded that through our wire frame on the back. I didn't want to wrap the ribbon all the way around, but you could. I just felt like this was a little bit too wide for that, and I really just wanted a little hint of it. And then once I got that looped through, I just duct taped it to the back so it's not permanent. We can switch it out with something else. We might even use a chalkboard to put our weekly menu on. There's things that you can do with a chalkboard, so I didn't really want to attach the wreath permanently, but this whole look looks so cute. I love the vibrant colors of it. Like I said, I really feel like this wreath could get you from fall through February, honestly. And it's just so vibrant, so beautiful. I'm really happy with the way it looked, and I hope you enjoy it too. Well before our shopping trip, I had it in my mind that I really wanted to find like an antique wood ladder. I even shopped Facebook Marketplace and I was really having no luck. And this is where I'm going to tell you, I did some major manifesting to make this happen. But finally on like the 5th or 6th thrift store that I went to, I'm like, oh, do you happen to have a wood ladder? Totally expecting a no. And she's like, I don't really know, but let me go check. And I kept shopping around the store, and then she came out and she's like, do you want a taller one or a shorter one? And I was like, woo! So they sold me this wood ladder for $9.99, and I'm telling you, that is a bargain, because the ones that I was finding on Facebook Marketplace were like between $50 to $80. So this was a total steal. So what I wanted to do with this this is I wanted to turn it into a nativity creche. So the very first thing that I did with this ladder is I decided to make a backdrop on the back and use a sheet. I used just a twin-sized sheet, and I took some more pipe cleaners and twist tied the top to kind of pinch pleat it together, and I twist tied that into place. And then I drew it out on the bottom and kind of tucked it underneath those boards. And then what I did is I took a little shop spotlight that I've had just for extra lighting. You can get them very inexpensively at Home Depot. They're basically just meant to go out in the shop, and then they have like a silver can light, because I wanted a spotlight that's going to shine down on the underside. So I took that and I took a couple of green pipe cleaners and twisted them together and proceeded to twist tie this onto our ladder. And you might need to use a few of those to get it securely in place. Then I found a couple of star options, and I decided to go with a larger star and use that at the top because we're creating like a place for a nativity. So the only way I could see to do this was it had a little wire hanger on it, but I needed to put a nail in the wood. And I figured it had seen some love, so one little tiny hole was not going to hurt anything. So I hammered in a little nail, which I then took another twist tie and tied the wire hanger to that nail and got that into place. Now at this point I realized that it was a little off kilter, that the rungs weren't totally level with one another, that the one side was a little bit lower. So it was just a little bit lower, so I took some 2x4s and just lifted up the one side with that. Then we needed a base for where we could set our nativity, so I found a piece of scrap wood from my pile, and it just happened to be the right size to slide right in on those bottom rungs of the ladder, and I put that into place. Then once I had it looking the way I wanted to, I pulled the sheet over the one board to kind of cover up our base. So I found this really cool cathedral window on my shopping adventures. I do think that down the road I may do a slight flip on it, like change the color or whatever, but for right now I decided to leave it as is and tuck it right in the back there. I just thought that would make a nice backdrop for the Holy Family, as like a cathedral style window. So that was kind of fun. And then I tucked 3 Christmas trees that I had from my collection in the back of this little creche that we're creating. And then I wanted to convert the outside of the ladder into a Christmas tree, essentially. So what I did is I took a collection of greenery garlands that I've collected over the years and just proceeded to layer them up. I started with the cheap, inexpensive ones from the Dollar Tree, and they don't take up a lot of like real estate, so but I had several of them, so I still put those down. And then I built it up with fuller ones, and then I knew I wanted to have a little bit more texture, so I tucked in some greenery picks, and that really gave it some texture. And then some of the garlands were pre-lit, so it had those twinkly lights on it. And then I also added some additional twinkle lights in varying sizes, and I just kind of draped that over the top of it. And I tucked them in here and there if they were really obnoxious into the garlands. And so here we are building up this Christmas tree, essentially. Now I do want to note that I think it would be really cool and free if you had access to some pine trees to clip off a bunch of them and then just wire those into place onto the ladder rungs. Fresh would be awesome, and you could really fill it up and make it nice and full and Christmas tree-esque. And then remember that wood slice from a couple of episodes back? I took that and decided to use that as the base for our little Holy Family. And then finally I found this beautiful nativity that I had purchased off of Amazon, and it was kind of larger in size, and I tucked that onto the wood slice, and that was it. I am super thrilled with how this looks. It's a little bit atypical. It kind of meshes like a traditional Christmas tree with a nativity, and so it kind of gets the best of both worlds. And what we celebrate in our house is the birth of Christ, and I think that this is just kind of a good little marriage between the modern Christmas and a traditional Christmas, and I just thought it was kind of fun, and I really hope that you found some inspiration in it too. This next one was super, super easy. You're gonna love it if you're looking for an easy flip here. So I walked into a thrift store. This was actually a few months ago. It wasn't on this trip. And I found this ginormous glass hurricane and it was beautiful. They actually had two. I kind of regret not getting the other one. I only got one of them. Buyer's remorse there. And I'm like, ooh, that could be really fun. So I snagged it. And then on our shopping trip this time, I found a little smaller one, but still a decent sized hurricane. So I picked that one up. I had an idea in mind. I also got some thrifted ornaments that were in kind of some champagne gold colors, lots of different ones in like a little bin full of those. And I'm like, we are going to combine this. So what I did is I took a couple of little mini Christmas trees and I just set them on the inside of the hurricane. And then to kind of embellish it a little bit more on the larger one, I filled the base of that full of Christmas ornaments that we found on our shopping trip. The other one was a little bit too small for that. So I tried it out first. It didn't really work good. So I just put a few little ornaments on the outside of that one, but them together look really good. This would look super beautiful on a shelf, which is where I may leave it. It would look beautiful on the center of a dining room table and maybe have some smaller ones on either side on a long table. But I just think this looks classy and it was so easy. So sometimes you're taking a couple of things that aren't together and you put them together and it makes something extraordinary. And I feel like that was the case this time around. What did you think of that? Next up, I saw this Santa sleigh. It was looking a little tired. It had some tired looking poinsettias and just was a little rough around the edges. It was forgotten. And I knew that with just a little bit of extra help, we could turn it into something amazing that we could maybe put in our Ronald McDonald house project. The first thing that we needed to do to this sleigh is kind of deconstruct and get rid of all of the things that we didn't like about the arrangement to begin with, similar to what we did in the wreath. And we could just set that aside for later, maybe take it back to the thrift store if it's not your thing. But we just got rid of all the stuff we didn't like and got it down to the bones. So I decided to change the color of the sleigh. It was all gold and I took the outside portion and I turned it into a non-traditional kind of aqua blue, but it's all going to work in the greater scheme of things here. And so I ended up having to do 3 to 4 coats of that craft paint. Maybe if you use chalk paint or something, it would go on a little bit thicker. But then I had also found this little reindeer that was very similar. And I'm like, well, our sleigh kind of needs a reindeer. And it was a different color of gold. So I took some rub and buff and tried to match it up to our reindeer a little bit more. And there was a couple of spots that were blemished on our sleigh anyway. So this was a good opportunity to correct those. So I just rubbed on a different color of rub and buff, which I love because it dries so quickly and it is such a good saturated color of gold. So I'm a huge fan of rub and buff. Then I added a whole bunch of little frosted greenery, Christmas greenery, to really add some texture and fun. And now with our sleigh prepared, now it's time to zhuzh it up a little bit. So I took a whole bunch of these candy themed ornaments that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. I just thought it would be easier to kind of pick some up that were already done. So I hope you don't fault me on that. But then I just proceeded to tuck them into this little Santa sleigh, fill it up full of goodies. And then I made some what I call little poofies out of like some sparkly tulle. And you just cut a little piece of that, twist it up, attach it to a wire, tuck them down into place, and that was it. It was really simple. This is something anybody could do. I promise you, it's super easy. When it was done, I thought it was so super cute. Now, my plans for this is that we are going to put this on. I think that there is a dining room table, or there's some tables in this family room that we are going to make over in the Ronald McDonald house. And I thought it would look really cute in here. But isn't that so much fun? You can change it from a traditional look to a non-traditional look. Ours is full of candy, but it totally fits our theme. And so I hope that that gets your wheels spinning and gets you thinking outside of the box when maybe you go to the thrift store and maybe it doesn't exactly match your decor, you can make simple, easy fixes and get it to be spot on for what you need. Okay, so this next one could have honestly been left alone if we really wanted to. It was really cute. It was this white ornament with gold polka dot accents and it was cute, but I thought we could elevate it just a little bit. So I found this adorable gold sequins bow. It's an ornament that I picked up at Hobby Lobby, and I knew that we could just attach that and it would make it super cute. Now you could do it traditional, but I decided to do it off kilter, just a bit off to the side. And then just as another idea, I decided to tuck in a lot of little Christmas greeneries around the bow. That's optional. I didn't glue mine in, but if you were going to use it, then do it that way. I would glue it in. I didn't glue it in because I wanted to have the flexibility of being able to use them again, but I did tuck them in there really good. But isn't this super cute? It's so fun and so sparkly and so festive for this time of year, and I hope you enjoyed that super easy thrift flip. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, here's another one that I think you'll like as well. And to all of my DIY goddesses, you are more powerful than you know. We'll see you next time. Bye.